ladies and gentlemen. You think love is loud, don't you? That it screams through grand gestures, poetic declarations, Instagram captions, and yet, what if I told you the deepest kind of love often whispers in silence? What if real devotion hides in the unnoticed, the uncelebrated, the almost invisible moments that pass you by each day? We've become so addicted to noise, to validation, to surface-level affirmations that we miss the quiet truth beneath it all, and that ignorance comes at a cost. Because right now, while you're waiting for fireworks, you could be overlooking the man who's already chosen you not once, but 1,000 times in the subtlest ways. Sound dramatic? Good it should. Because by the end of this, you'll either feel the sting of recognition or the urgency to reevaluate what you thought love looked like. And before you say, "But if he loved me, wouldn't he just say it?" stick around. His silence may be saying more than 100 "I love yous" ever could. He remembers the little things that matter to you, not because he's trying to impress you, not because he's ticking off boxes from a dating advice column, but because in the stillness of his mind you've taken root. And that alone speaks volumes. Think about it. When you casually mention your favorite snack, the name of your childhood dog, or the specific way you take your coffee, these aren't grand, world-shaking revelations. They're passing details, pieces of you that you let slip without even thinking. But he catches them. Not with a flourish, not with a dramatic reaction, but with quiet attention. Later, when he brings you that exact coffee without asking, or smiles when someone else mentions that dog's name, you realize he was listening. He was paying attention when you didn't even realize you were speaking. That's not an accident. That's presence. Love, real love, isn't always poetic declarations or sweeping gestures under moonlight. Sometimes it's simply in the way he listens when you speak, in the mental notes he takes that no one else hears. It's the moment you walk into a room and find your favorite blanket already laid out, or the playlist you once mentioned playing in the background. It's him noticing when your energy dips and asking the right question without prying. It's when he shows up with that obscure candy you haven't had since high school, just because you once said you missed it. That's not luck. That's love disguised as memory. There's a reason this kind of love hits differently. It's subtle. It's not loud or flashy. It doesn't beg to be seen, but it's deeply felt. Because it tells you something no loud declaration ever could, that you exist vividly in his mind even when you're not around. You've become part of his internal world. And not because he has to, but because he wants to. And that makes all the difference. The way he holds on to those little details isn't about obligation, it's about desire. He desires to understand you, not just as a partner, but as a whole, complex, wonderfully unpredictable person. Let's be honest, anyone can buy roses on Valentine's Day. Anyone can say, "I love you," when it's expected. But to remember that you hate loud restaurants, or that you feel uneasy in crowds, or that your favorite time of day is just before sunset when the sky turns gold, that's not performative. That's intentional. It's earned through attentiveness. And here's the truth that many overlook: attention is love. In a world where distraction is currency, where minds wander and screens flicker constantly, someone choosing to give you their full, focused attention is rare. It's sacred. That kind of memory isn't just about romance, it's about emotional intelligence. He's not just remembering facts, he's reading the story you didn't even know you were writing. He remembers the tone in your voice when you talked about your dreams. He recalls the spark in your eyes when you described a place you've always wanted to visit. He notices when your laugh changes, when it's genuine versus when it's covering something up. And he stores all of this quietly, not to throw it back at you during arguments or use it as leverage, but to build something real, something grounded. When you're with someone who remembers the little things, you feel seen in a way that's hard to describe. It's like he's holding a mirror to the parts of you that often go unnoticed. The soft parts, the overlooked parts, the parts you've had to bury around people who never bothered to look deeper, and suddenly, without trying, you begin to feel safe. Not because he told you you're safe, but because he's proven it in countless invisible ways. Sometimes it'll catch you off guard. You'll mention a fleeting desire like wanting to see the stars from a quiet hilltop, and months later, he'll suggest a spontaneous drive, no agenda, just a blanket and the night sky. It might seem like a coincidence, but it's not. That's him giving weight to your words. That's him telling you without saying a thing that your dreams, even the small ones, matter to him, that you matter to him. This is how emotional permanence shows up. Even when you're not in front of him, you're still present in his decisions, his thoughts, his plans. When he's shopping and sees something you'd love, he doesn't hesitate. When he hears a joke that would make you laugh, he saves it. When he's faced with a choice that might affect you even slightly, he considers you. He holds you in mind not because he has to, but because it's instinct now. People often chase fireworks and overlook the embers, but it's the embers that keep you warm at night. The man who remembers your favorite kind of tea, or how your voice sounds when you're overwhelmed, or which sweater is your comfort go-to on hard days, he's paying attention to your soul, not just your surface. That kind of man isn't shouting, "I love you" from rooftops. He's whispering it through his actions over and over again in a language you have to slow down to understand. And maybe that's the point. Maybe love isn't meant to be a performance. Maybe it's meant to be quiet, consistent, and clear. Maybe the little things aren't little at all. Maybe they're the whole story written in the spaces between words. He protects your peace even in silence, and that might be one of the clearest signs he loves you. Not the kind of peace that comes from everything going right, but the deeper kind, the peace of feeling emotionally safe, of knowing that you don't have to wear a mask or constantly explain yourself. It's not dramatic, it's not loud, but it's powerful. When a man genuinely loves you, he learns how to become a shield, not a sword. He doesn't always need to fix your problems or speak over your pain. Sometimes he simply sits in it with you, holding space, letting you feel what you feel without rushing you to the finish line of happiness. And in that silence, there is an unspoken vow. I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, and you don't have to earn this calm. You start to notice it in the little things, the way he senses when you're overwhelmed and gently offers you space without making it feel like distance. Or when he handles something stressful on his own just so you don't have to carry it. He's not trying to be a hero, he's just trying to keep your world a little lighter, a little more breathable. When he senses conflict, he doesn't stoke the flames with ego or defensiveness. Instead, he diffuses the situation with patience and self-control. He's not interested in winning the argument, he's interested in protecting the relationship. And in that choice, over and over again, he's choosing your peace over his pride. There's a certain kind of man who understands that being loud isn't the same as being strong, who knows that emotional maturity doesn't always speak, it listens. It observes. It reads between the lines. When you're quiet, he doesn't demand that you speak. When you cry, he doesn't panic or try to talk you out of it. He holds your hand, he stays, he makes the silence feel safe rather than awkward. That is love in its most respectful form. Because it's not about solving you, it's about supporting you. Sometimes the world feels like too much. The noise, the pressure, the expectations, the endless demands. But he becomes your quiet corner, your pause button, your reminder that love doesn't have to be exhausting. That there is someone who doesn't want anything from you just for you to feel okay. It might be as simple as him taking over the chores when he sees you're drained, or as invisible as him not reacting to your anxiety with more tension. Maybe it's how he slows his tone when you're on edge, or how he lets your silence stretch without rushing to fill it. Whatever it is, you feel it. He's not adding weight to your life, he's lifting it. And what makes this kind of love so rare is that it's unselfish. He's not doing it to be praised. In fact, he may not even bring it up. He's not asking for recognition when he steps back so you can breathe. He doesn't announce the things he holds back for your sake, the words he chooses carefully, the reactions he softens, the chaos he keeps from reaching you. It's not because he's hiding things, it's because he's filtering the world through a lens of care. He knows that your peace is worth more than being right, more than being heard in every moment, more than proving a point. You'll feel it in how he handles your vulnerabilities. He doesn't weaponize your fears or use your past against you. Instead, he guards them like secrets he's been trusted with. When you open up about something that scares you, he doesn't make light of it, he holds it with reverence. That's protection. Not the kind that wears armor and swings swords, but the kind that quietly builds a safe place inside his presence. You know that you can fall apart around him and still be held together. You know that your silence isn't met with suspicion, but with compassion. And when life gets chaotic, when stress builds up or emotions spiral, he doesn't make it about him. He doesn't need to be the center of the storm. He becomes the calm eye within it. Sometimes he'll take a step back, not out of disinterest, but out of respect. He'll let you process in your own way, on your own terms, but with the assurance that he's close by if you need him. That's what makes his silence feel safe instead of distant. It's the kind of silence that says, I trust you to be you, and I'll still be here when you're ready. This kind of love doesn't always make headlines. It doesn't look like grand gestures or fairy tale romance, but it is deeply stabilizing. It creates a foundation you didn't even know you needed, a love that gives instead of takes, that eases instead of burdens. It doesn't spark with drama, it hums with safety. And over time, you begin to realize that the absence of chaos, the consistency of care, the effort to protect your emotional well-being without expecting anything in return, that is one of the purest forms of devotion. It's the kind of love that doesn't have to be spoken to be understood because you feel it in the quietest parts of your life. You make sacrifices without seeking credit, and that kind of love is often the most overlooked, yet the most genuine. It's not painted in grand strokes or accompanied by applause. It happens in the shadows, behind closed doors, in moments you often never even see. He shifts his priorities, rearranges his plans, absorbs discomfort, and lets go of personal desires, not because he's weak or losing himself, but because he wants to see you thrive. And he never announces it. He doesn't remind you of what he gave up. He doesn't say, "Look what I did for you." He simply does it quietly, consistently, and with a sense of purpose rooted in love, not recognition. It starts in the subtle, almost invisible moments. He skips that late-night gathering because he knows you've had a long day and need rest. He turns down an opportunity that might put distance between you just because he values presence more than prestige. He stays quiet during a heated moment, not because he doesn't have something to say, but because he values peace over proving a point. There's a silent strength in the way he chooses your comfort over his convenience and your well-being over his ego. He doesn't advertise these choices, they're simply woven into the fabric of how he loves. Sacrifice, when it comes from the right place, doesn't look like suffering, it looks like intentional giving. It's not about losing himself or bending so far that he breaks. It's about choosing to hold space for both your growth and his, even when the path forward means stepping aside or stepping up without a spotlight. He makes those choices without needing a thank you, without waiting for validation. That's how you know it's real, because it's not tied to transaction. It's love for the sake of love, not for what it gets him in return. This is the kind of man who notices your dreams and quietly repositions his own to make room for them. When life forces compromises, he takes the harder road if it means you'll have more stability. Maybe he takes on more responsibilities at work so you can pursue something uncertain. Maybe he chooses silence during your moments of fear, not because he lacks answers, but because he knows you need safety more than advice. He adjusts himself not in the way that erases who he is, but in a way that supports who you're becoming. That's sacrifice in motion. Not controlling, not conditional, just deeply giving. He doesn't keep a mental scoreboard. He doesn't remind you of what he's done every time something goes wrong. He doesn't say, "Remember when I gave that up for you?" Because to him, it was never a loss. It was an offering. And that distinction matters. It changes everything. A man who sacrifices with resentment is performing, not loving. A man who sacrifices with silence is serving, not self-promoting. That kind of man finds joy in your joy. His reward is your peace. His win is your smile. And often you'll realize long after the fact how much he gave. You'll look back and suddenly see the things he quietly let go of, the times he stayed late, woke up early, held back, gave more, took less. You'll remember moments where he could have chosen himself and didn't. And maybe at the time it looked like nothing. But in hindsight, it was everything. Those were the moments that built the trust you didn't know you were leaning on, the stability you assumed was natural, the foundation that now feels unshakable. His sacrifices may be silent, but their impact echoes in the way your life feels more manageable, in the emotional space you've been given, in the unspoken support that holds you up on your worst days, and he never asks for a trophy. He doesn't turn his giving into leverage. He doesn't weaponize his kindness. That's what sets him apart. He's not in it for applause. He's in it for the relationship, for the shared journey, for something deeper than surface-level validation. Sometimes you'll catch a glimpse of it, a tired look in his eyes after a long day, a slight pause when he agrees to something he doesn't really want but knows you do. And you'll realize he's still choosing you. Every day, in ways big and small, he's choosing you over and over again, without fanfare, without needing anything back. And that quiet loyalty becomes the anchor of your relationship. The kind of loyalty that's not spoken about in movies or songs, but lived out in daily decisions, compromises, and acts of invisible love. People talk about love like it's supposed to be easy, spontaneous, effortless. But the truth is, real love demands investment. It demands time, presence, and yes, sacrifice. Not dramatic sacrifice. Not pain for pain's sake, but the intentional choice to place someone else's heart next to your own and say, "You matter to me. I'll carry some weight so you don't have to." And when that love is real, when it's built on more than romance or convenience, sacrifice doesn't feel like loss, it feels like legacy. Like building something lasting through 1,000 small, uncelebrated acts of care. He shows up consistently, quietly, and without being asked. That's not just a habit, it's a form of love. The kind that doesn't need permission or reminders. The kind that understands that presence is more powerful than promises. He doesn't make a big scene, doesn't announce his loyalty on social media, doesn't need to be reminded of his role in your life. He simply shows up again and again in ways that are easy to miss unless you're paying attention. When you're overwhelmed, when you're celebrating, when you're silent, when you're struggling, he's there. Not because you asked, but because he chose to be. That kind of consistency speaks louder than any grand gesture ever could. It's easy to show up when everything is exciting, when you're laughing, when things are light, when life feels like a celebration. But what about when things are hard? When you're withdrawn, confused, or in pain? That's when you see who truly cares. And he does. He's there in those quiet in-between moments where there's no spotlight, no crowd, and no applause. He shows up in the middle of your breakdowns, not with solutions or speeches, but with steady eyes and a calm presence that says you're not alone. He doesn't disappear when things get messy. He stays, not out of obligation, but because he genuinely wants to walk through life with you, not just the polished parts. Sometimes his presence doesn't come with words. He might sit beside you without filling the silence, might handle small things in your day without mentioning it, might keep showing up in your space without drawing attention to himself. That's not indifference, that's deep, intentional love. A kind of love that understands that just being there, just showing up, is sometimes the most powerful form of support. He's the one who remembers your appointments, who checks in on your sick parent, who notices when your energy dips and shows up with your favorite meal, not because it's a special occasion, but because you matter to him every day in ordinary ways. When you need him, he's there. But even more importantly, when you don't say you need him, he's still there. He doesn't need an invitation to care. He doesn't wait to be needed to act. He notices and he moves. Quietly. He doesn't make you feel like a burden, doesn't require praise, and doesn't treat your struggles like obligations. He takes it all in stride because he sees your heart and he honors it. The power of his consistency is in how it allows you to relax, to breathe, to trust, to finally stop wondering if someone will leave when you're not at your best, because he's already shown you he won't. You start to feel it in your nervous system, that calm you feel when his name lights up your phone, that relief when he walks through the door without you having to ask, that sense of safety in knowing that someone cares enough to pay attention, to be reliable, to show up even when it's not convenient. He's the one who drives across town in traffic just to spend an hour with you because he knows that hour means more than anything else. He's the one who changes his schedule to be there when you're going through something tough, even if you never said a word. His love is rooted in presence, not performance. There are people who speak well of love, who write beautiful things, who make promises they believe in at the moment. And then there are people who don't say much at all, but they do, every single time. He's that kind of person. He shows up when it's raining. He shows up when you're angry. He shows up when you're not lovable, when you're tired, when you're frustrated, when you're quiet. He shows up in the little ways that are easy to overlook, but impossible to forget. Like taking care of the things you didn't even know you needed help with. Like remembering the anniversary of a painful loss you never talked about again. Like texting just to say, I'm thinking of you, not because he's trying to keep your attention, but because you've never left his. And the beautiful part is, he never asks for recognition. He's not doing it to be seen. He's doing it because he believes love is in the follow-through, not the fireworks. He understands that reliability is romantic, that being steady is rare, that showing up without being asked over and over again builds trust deeper than any words ever could. You start to realize that his presence is the safest place you've ever known. Not because he's perfect, not because he never fails, but because he always comes back, always makes the effort, always chooses to be there. You'll hear people say love is a feeling, but he reminds you that it's also a commitment, a pattern, a rhythm, a decision made quietly and often to keep choosing the same person every day. He's not flashy, he's faithful. And that matters. That changes everything. Because when someone keeps showing up for you, even when they don't have to, even when you never ask, they're telling you the truth about their heart. And it's a truth that doesn't need to be shouted. It's written in their footsteps, in their time, in their actions. And those are the kinds of truths you can build a life on.